And on Sunday, it's International Day for Persons with Disabilities. And this is a very important day. And joining us today is Janet Noel-Annable. She's a CEO of Karis Disabilities Services. And she's here to discuss how her organization is working to ensure people with disabilities find their value and unique God-given gifts, which is so important. Well, welcome to 700 Club Canada, Janet. Nice to have you with us.
It's great to be here, Lori. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, many people would be familiar with the name Christian Horizons and the support it gives to people with disabilities. But recently, the name was changed to Karis Disabilities Services. So, why the name change?
Oh, great. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about that. We've been doing some work on making sure that people know who we are, what we do, and why we do it. And so we've been meeting with folks across the country to hear their perspective on our organization over the last couple of years. And what we heard from them is that the people that knew us really well, but the people who didn't know us weren't sure who we were, who we are, what we do, and why we do it. And so we undertook almost a 2-year-long process of thinking deeply, praying, discerning about our name, which has served us so well for the last 60 years. And through that process, we made the decision to change our name to Karis Disability Services. Karis to reflect our values and position as a Christian faith-based organization, and Disability Services to be really clear about the people who use our services and supports and the types of services and supports that we offer.
Well, it's really a great name based on
Thank you.
grace and love. And that's what
Yeah.
really your organization exemplifies to so many. There's a big need for people with disabilities across Canada, and many of those needs are not being met. Can you just tell us about the people you serve and the needs that are right here in Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. So we provide supports and services in 2 provinces at this time, in Saskatchewan and in Ontario. But in all provinces across Canada, there are people with disabilities. Our focus is people with developmental disabilities who, society might think have access to all of the things that they need to live good lives in their communities. And unfortunately, that's just not the case. So many people and their families are without the supports they need. For example, in Ontario, there's more than 70,000 people on waiting lists waiting for services and supports in their community. So there's tons of work to do. We're grateful for the partnership we have with governments, both in Saskatchewan and Ontario. We're hopeful and optimistic about the Canadian disability benefit that is making its way through the federal government. And I'm hopeful that, by getting the opportunity to talk in places like this, that we raise awareness of people so that, going forward, we continue to grow our, not just for Karis Disability Services, but right across Canada with, hundreds of fabulous organizations. We grow their capacity to provide the right supports and services so that people with disabilities can live good, contributing lives in their communities.
Well, it is so important, and I'm sure many of us are not aware of how great the need is. What are some of the challenges that families and caregivers face that Karis seeks to address?
Yeah. Well, we provide a range of supports and services. We provide residential support. So as young people grow into adulthood, just like everybody else, they look to find their own place to live with people that they choose and roommates that they like to live with. So we provide supports to help people find housing, find roommates, live together. We also provide supports to people to have productive day activities. So maybe help people get jobs or volunteer in their community. And then we also provide a number of services sort of from a specialized perspective. So people who have a dual diagnosis or complex support needs, those kinds of things that need kind of a creative and unique support location with highly qualified staff members and, lots of partnerships within community with others folks to help, again, people have really good lives in their communities. Lord, we believe that everybody, every person, every human being is created in the image of God,
Right.
and that through that, they are valuable and important. They're both important to God. They're also important in their communities and to their families. And so all of the services and supports that we offer are to help build bridges or fill in gaps so that people get to live good lives in their communities, valued lives, lives of purpose and meaning.
Well, you've hit it right on the head, and that is so important that we're reminded Every individual, every human being is made in the image of God. And so we're to look at people the way God looks at
Yeah.
people. So, how can we each respond? Sometimes it can feel overwhelming that maybe as an individual, what can I do? But what can a person do to help support people with disabilities in their everyday life?
Great question. I'm so glad that you asked me the question. We all live in communities. I think the first thing is recognizing that people with disabilities live in communities, whether that's a child of a family on your street or in your neighborhood, or a person that lives, an adult with a developmental disability or disability, is to really see people as neighbors and friends and coworkers and colleagues and contributors and members of your church as equal and valuable. That's the starting point. There's no secret recipe for being human together and being neighborly and being welcoming people. We often talk about communities where everybody belongs. And I love the word belong because, we also use the word inclusion. People know what inclusion means. And inclusion means that there's a place for you, that maybe there's a law or a rule that says you have a right to be there. But belonging means so much more. Belonging means that you're welcomed, that you're important, that you're a part of a community or a church or a workplace or a space. And when you're not there, you're missed and somebody goes looking for you. All of us want to belong. And as neighbors, as family, as friends, we can do so much just in our own selves as we welcome people, as we provide opportunities for people to belong. Um,
I love that. That is
yeah.
so good. And if we can hold on to that, belonging, reaching out, noticing, paying attention, we can really make a difference, can't we, in our communities?
We sure can. And, we often think that that is a one-way street. But I promise you that when you welcome somebody, there's a reciprocity that happens that is good for everybody. So,
That's right.
we hear from, schools and churches and even employers that say when they hire a person with a disability, the first reaction is to create a good job for somebody, or the first reason for doing that is to create a job, to fill a job. But the impact on their coworkers and the space in which they work on is often a win-win circumstance. And we know that when we reach out and welcome somebody, there's something that happens in our own heart, that God uses us in such a magnificent, wonderful way that is not only good for the person that you're helping, but the person who's doing the helping.
Oh, that's it. That's it. Well, thank you so much for just sharing with us today. 'Tis the season to put this into practice of all seasons of the year.
Yeah.
But for more about Karis Disabilities Services, go to 700club.ca.